Hi, coaches. Welcome back to Big Rule the World. Today we are diving in. We're continuing our series where we dive into the college football finalists this year, or the college football semifinalists this year. This week diving into Clemson. Ooh, good thing it's only a one-take show. Anyway, 3 takeaways from Clemson 2020 that you can apply to your offense now. Notre Dame, we talked about last time, more sort of philosophical, I think, in nature, sort of overarching terms of what Notre Dame does well. For me, Clemson, when I dove into them, gets a little bit more in the schematic things with their offense and how it's evolved from, one elite quarterback to the next, really. Number one being the power of 20 personnel. It talked, one of the articles I talked about says Clemson doesn't define themselves as a spread 10 personnel team. They define themselves as a 20 personnel team. And the Tigers, because of this, have been able to do some interesting things in both the run and passing game where they're able to hide tight ends or extra running backs as an extra guy in 2021 personnel. Okay, we talk about 20 personnel. I want to talk about more specifically fast versus what we call Hellcat, which is two different personnel groupings that we do at Alta Vista School, Alta Vista Combined School. Okay, we did this past year. It's the first time I've ever thought about using two different personnel groupings within it. I've always, I guess, been more of a Hellcat guy that if you're going to put a guy in there, he's going to be your hammer. But we could go hammer and we could go fast. What does Hellcat allow Clemson to do for them? A lot of times, Hellcat allows them to draw up and, run their gap scheme. Now, if you overload and you have that Hellcat back to the boundary side, or you have them where you're putting the strength of the formation to the trip side, now you can come back and run weak side power, weak side counter with the Hellcat back. Okay, that's just one of the things that makes Clemson unique is with their game plan of like messing with people's heads. Just to be honest, when it comes to motion, when it comes to formationing, all that stuff. To me, Clemson is playing in an advanced world with that. And then fast allows them to really stretch on the zone reads and everything. Now we have two fast true running backs. And I think you saw Clemson played this year with the best running back in the nation in Travis Etienne. But they weren't dead in the water when he wasn't available because they have elite playmakers in those types of positions. So the use of 20 personnel, whether you're going to go what we would call 20 fast, where you're putting two true speed running back type guys in, or if you want to go 20 Hellcat, where you're putting more of a fullback H type of guy in. It gives you different things in the zone versus power game. The other thing, motion. Motion, I think Clemson does for several reasons. Number one, it can give you an advantage in the formation. We can trade over formation looks. We can get the strength of the formation to one side and then motion the strength of the formation to the next. Motion can deceive. Clemson does this a lot of times with jet sweep coming in disguising zone or disguising power or disguising counter or disguising play action pass as they're probably doing right here in this picture. Okay, it can window dress. It makes plays look different just on how you're scripting and how you're seeing in the defense. It plays with the defense's eyes, plays with that safety's eyes. It leads into a lot of what they can do with RPO game and what they can do within their running game. And finally, the last thing is don't forget the boundary, okay? This whole formation is set up to the field, but what can I see right here? What can I see right here? And like I told you, we can have the strength of the formation here, and then we can come back here with this H and kick, and now we can run weak side power. We could potentially run weak side with a quarterback here with a little counter tray without using the pullers, or you can just have a counter. Okay, you have all of that now because you can use the boundary of the formation, whether you want to put your formation to the boundary, which I think a lot of guys in high school don't do enough. We don't use the boundary enough because, defenses are set up to defend the field. And now, I fell into it too as an offensive coordinator a lot of times, ignoring the boundary side of the field and playing the wide side. I think we get into that way too much. Even when we're running gosh damn power, man, I would play the wide side too much. Power is a BC gap play. So, we got to think about that. So my tips on how we can take lessons from Clemson, number one, have some fun. Use some 20 personnel in the game, okay? If you're used to a power G kicking team, see what happens when you put that H back in there, and now you can have him kicking or rapping and having fun with that. If you're a zone team, jet sweep team, what happens when you take your jet man and you put him in the backfield with your tailback, okay? And now you can run your jet zone read that way. Window dress, okay? I just gave you different options where you can run the same play, but it just looks different. It's the same freaking play. Whether we're running power with the H-back kicking, the H-back wrapping, or a guard tackle wrapping, is it not the same stinking play as the same play when it comes down to it? We can window dress with formation. We can window dress with motion. We can window dress with what we're doing stuff with, and that's what Clemson does a lot of times. And finally, when it comes to the boundary, be cognizant where you are. Game plan for the boundary. Come up with plays that are successful to the boundary based on what that defense is going to give you each week. Game plan to use the boundary and have somebody up in your box, making sure you don't stick to the wide side of the field every stinking time, because that's a big giveaway. Okay? Those are just 3 lessons. I know it isn't necessarily geared toward our bigs, but hey, man, Clemson dominates. They're not going to have like what we would call a top 10 offensive lineman probably this year come out in the draft, but they dominate when it comes to the running game. They're a very well-balanced offense. And I think they do a lot of things scheme-wise that you can use and you can take advantage of. And you can use when you go back with your offensive coordinators back home, you offensive coordinators or you head coaches. Use some of these ideas. I don't care what your base is, whether it's wing tee, it's split back veer, it's single wing. It doesn't matter. Use your formations and be smart with what you're doing. Because just as Clemson is what you would call a spread team or what they would call a 20 personnel team, okay, doesn't mean we can't use some of these ideas for our offense. And that's what I want you all to take advantage of, how you can apply what you have back home. All right? Until next time, coaches, remember, if you want to win games, you got to dominate in the trenches. You want to dominate in the trenches, you got to remember that bigs rule the world. I'll see you next time, coaches.